So what we're talking about today is what does it mean to be independent? And I think people have a very clear idea. Some people, once you start to think about it, it gets a bit more complicated because you're running a business under your own steam, but you might have distribution there, you might have technology here, you might have started out in the business one way and then actually you need to evolve. So we're looking at that landscape, and particularly from the perspective of managing the rights within that independent, so the licensing aspect. How do you make money and how do you manage those rights? And I suppose these are the key topics of where we're seeing another cycle. It goes around of consolidation in the market. We have aspects of the infrastructure being acquired by bigger companies. We see an incredible growth of tech that actually provides real resources to smaller companies. So what are the pros? What are the cons? What are the pressures? And what does that do to the shape of independence, as people said it out to me? So I'm really lucky that I've got some people here who can tell us much more about that than I can, who are working in and around the independent sector, whether that's with solutions for every kind of company, and particularly smaller companies, through to those who represent those companies, and someone who actually runs an independent company. So that's my headline. I'll let them introduce themselves to you. If you could tell me a little bit about who you are, what your company does, and what does it mean to you to be independent? Start with David here.
Hello, my name is David McGinnis. I'm the managing director of Mute Song, which is the music publishing division partner to Mute Records, the independent record label, which grew out of the post-punk era. I joined there in 1999 as head of licensing, and so I must have done something bad in the previous life because I have been in sync for 30 years. And so over time, my job developed, and eventually I did business affairs, and I took over. What does it mean for me to be an independent? Well, it's about the artists that we represent. We exist to support artists that make original, innovative, and challenging music. Some of it does quite well, but a lot of it is quite niche, and we support everybody equally. So for me, it's about the artists we support. That's what independence means to me.
Thank you very much. Me.
So I'm Noemí Planas. I'm the CEO of WIN, the Worldwide Independent Network. This is an international organization that brings together the national trade associations of independent record companies and music companies. Previously, I used to run the Spanish branch, the Spanish C, and also work at the record label, computer publishing, and so on, etc. And to me, being independent, if we want to have like a definition, it's very, very complicated. Even we at WIN have, every association has slightly different definition, perhaps, of what it means technically or, legally. But for me, it's more like a mindset. It's a set of values that sets us apart from those businesses who are just purely driven by all the returns. And being independent is about having control, about taking risks, and about investing in new artists and music and exciting new songs.
Thank you very much. And last but never least, Rav.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ralf Böge. I'm taking care of the Paradise Distribution Company. We are at the core distributor. We acquire master rights, the publishing rights. We collect those rights, distribute for streaming, download. Also, AI exploitation is a new portfolio thing we do. And there was a question about what is independence? I think being independent is better than being under a major, whatever that means now. I think it's the good thing. So this is a little mindset. I think we can talk about it quite long, but let's say we represent the independent structure and way of thinking because we think that the planet goes in the wrong direction, and independence is important because of many, many things which we could discuss afterwards. But that's my summary. I don't want to make it too...
So you're supposed to start with the more sort of nanodyne technical questions and drop songs later, but let's we'll definitely come back to, I guess, the pros and cons, I'd probably call them. But there is clearly a mindset. There is clearly a everyone would think about it as taking a bit of a risk or a passion project. But there are also, as you're demonstrating, solutions that actually allow you to operate globally, allow you to manage rights without teams of hundreds, that allow you to be represented globally and have a voice when actually you would feel too tiny to affect any regulation or any other frameworks without organizations like WIN. And this comes to another aspect in a slightly more functional way, I suppose, David. I always try and actually avoid the term DIY because it's never something you do on your own, a music career or a music company. It's something that you do with an independent mindset, but you do in partnership with other elements, other people, other resources and tools. So as Mute, can you give us some idea of how and why you work with certain partners, whether it's rights management or it's making money?
Well, being independent means that we're a small organization based in London, and we don't have 40 offices around the world. Now, there are independents, like our friends at Pure Music, who are like a mini major. They're independent, but they're big. They have offices everywhere. So we have a hand-picked set of partners in every territory or around the globe, and we've been working with them, many of them, for a very long time, and they administer our rights in those territories. So we aren't on our own. But we also take a great interest in what's happening everywhere. We don't just leave it to the local, especially when it comes to sync, because nobody's going to represent your catalog and be passionate about your catalog, as knowledgeable about your catalog as we are. So even though we have great partners here in Spain, we still keep an eye on France, but keep an eye on the whole world. And we're also members of the Music Publishers Association, where that's an interesting fund, the IPF. And obviously we have partners with MCPS and BRS and so forth. And, so yeah, there's a community around us, and also within the sync universe, film and television. I have been working with people working in film and television, some of them for 25 years. So they're a community as well. So there's a back and forth down right here.
It's one of the most sociable communities in music. If anyone is interested in joining something that is one free drink after another. But I think what's really interesting there is you have a mindset, you need reach and you need business intelligence on the ground in different disciplines or in different regions, but you have a direction that you want to be instilled in every way that they work as well. And you mentioned being part of a community of other smaller companies or actually other like-minded companies in terms of the fact that they are in publishing. So would you say that you have a particular mindset that's specific to Mute or as specific to being a publisher, or are they in parallel with each other?
Well, we certainly have a specific mindset when it comes to picking our partners, if that's what you mean. So they need to understand the weird music that we work with. That's the first thing. I mean, we've been approached by potential partners. We could tell they just didn't really get what we were doing. And I guess from a perspective of a music publisher, I guess I would just add, I don't quite know how to answer that question, but I'm a sort of music publisher through and through, I guess.
Yes.
It's a very particular perspective. There are things that I gladly don't know anything about, like marketing records. I don't want to know.
But as long as they make money with your songs, yes, that's fine. And actually having that identity amongst a community identity is something that anyone who is part of sort of trade associations and things like that would resonate with. Do we have other independent companies, let alone independent publishers in the room? I shouldn't have said that. Yes. Any independent music makers? When I say independent, signed or unsigned, maybe only on one side. Okay, so you share a mindset of wanting to keep control of how you want to do things, but you may need to learn more about how other bits of it work or work with other people who do different things. But at the same time, I think there is a comfort in a community of other people having the same struggle or same passion and that sort of thing. And I work for a trade body in the UK, have worked for several, one Music Publishers Association, previously for artists, and now for retail, which sits in the supply chain of getting that creativity to those fans and getting the money back, I suppose. And what I find interesting there is my representative role has to find a common voice for people who have a very clear and independent way of approaching their business. It's finding the common problems, the common pressures. And Win is an escalation of that because it's global as well. So how do you keep the passion, the knowledge, all the things that David talks about? It's important our partners understand us, but it's important that we have partners. It's important that we are publishers, and you're obviously on the label side. How do you balance all those different voices, and how do you find a common thread of what independent labels means?
I think the beauty of being independent is actually that you do things your own way, right? So there's no way of being independent. Each independent is different. That's what we really appreciate, and that brings a lot of diversity and different voices to our network. But I think the common, if you have something in common and or a goal, is that we all believe in a more fair and strong and equal music ecosystem. I think we can grow the value of music and all have equal access and opportunities in this market. So even if we own each of us does it in a slightly different way, I think we will ultimately in the leaving something behind that is good for humanity, I guess. No, tell me. Something that we all have in common. And I think that sets it apart a little bit from just the pure oddball of making money, which is also, of course, we all are here in the music industry. We want to keep up it. But anyway, so to find a common voice, it's not easy. And it's not easy at the local level, but then, if you go to a regional level or a global, even more difficult. But we have an example. Last year, we have something that we call the Global Independent Values. And we just renewed them last year. They were originally published on QS 2012 or so. And we did an extensive and collaborative exercise to actually include all these trade associations and record labels from various parts of the world to basically review them and see if they were aligned with what they think, what their businesses are for, etc. So these values is 10 core principles that we had that represent this, I guess, global position of the community, and they include things like access to market and opportunities, equal opportunities for licensing, and the relationship with artists, and ensuring that the creators' rights are protected, engaging the new technologies while at the same time protecting the right and the rights, promoting diversity and sustainability, and being against over consolidation of the market. That we can discuss that later. So there's a few things that we all agree on, and the way that we do this at Queen is including voices from around the world. We have 37 trade associations now around the world, and the board is represented by people in Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, India, Argentina, Brazil, Chile. So, we are sure that they are included, and we hear all the different voices.
Thank you. And actually, we'll come on to how scale is facilitated, or perhaps more than ever before, with technology. But I just wanted to pick up quickly on one of your points you made there about there's another aspect of being independent, which is that you still want leverage, you still want to carry some weight, and your voice has to matter, and to be treated fairly, people need to know what you think of as that. And so there is consolidation that's seen as positive in licensing. That's what we're here for today, which is being able to do deals en masse on behalf of a collection of smaller companies. Merlin, for example, on the label side, there are various from Impel and others, including ICE, for the publishing side. Does that work? Do you think you get fairer deals, better deals?
It's interesting. One part of the things about being an independent is that you're really, really focused on the music, right? We're with Impel, and we trust them to get on with it. I know that as an Impel member, that gives the collection of music publishers within Impel a sizable market share. I don't necessarily get into the numbers I don't know if Impel has a better deal with Spotify than Universal, but I know that they're working towards that.
They probably shouldn't tell you that.
Yeah. So
there's NDAs and all kinds.
So I trust that they are out there with the big hitters in a way that we certainly could be as an individual organization. And IMCA or ICE as well. ICE still has a formidable membership. And so those two organizations together. And interestingly, those two organizations have we're sort of joining our thinking up about places like China, where we realize that we need a really consolidated sort of, because the majors are going in there and doing stuff on their own and kind of leaving everybody else out. So
they only look after the rights that they have the mandate for. Of course. And also, IMPO has a heroic and heroically open-minded CEO, Sarah Williams. Look her up if you need some inspirations.
But Merlin is a good example. It is because when streaming started and the platforms began licensing, it would only go to the three majors, and because the majors control globally like around 70%, or independents are like 30%, depending if you count in the distribution share, which is that ownership, blah, blah, blah. Then let's say 70%. So with 3 deals, you get 70% of the music around the world. So why would these services need, to do then thousands and thousands of licenses with all the other rights holders? So a group of independents started Berlin in, I think it was 2006. And it was precisely to do this. It's not collecting societies. It's not exactly the same as some of the other solutions. The labels can opt in or out of deals, and you still have your exclusive right to license, so you can still do your own deal if you want to. But what Merlin does is the agency that negotiates frameworks and deals that then you can opt into as an independent. Merlin now represents, I think, it's 15% of the global generous share. And so, effectively, is the fourth major for the reported side, of course, of the ad industry. But so when I was saying before that, when Spotify or all these companies started growing, and before that, they would, well, first of all, start by not licensing, like with AI is happening now, I guess. There's a trend of, I just do it and then, then see what happens, try to get away with it. Then they did deals with the majors, and the independents only got the promise. So basically, after they did the deals with the majors, which usually included big advances, millionaire advances and not for the artist, not really shared with them, but for the
so many little bombs dropped in this comment.
Well, anyway, it was created for this. We need to go together to license a deal together with the Spotify, with Deezer, with Google, then YouTube. There's a number of deals. They now license many services around the world. But with that, then it was almost impossible for smaller independents. Maybe if you were like a Beggars or a bigger one, you could strike deals that are, let's say, similar. I don't know if they're always equal or not, the same as you. We don't know the exact terms of the deals that the majors have, but we know that we're at the table. We have a seat at the table with Merlin independents, and they are able to negotiate and leverage all this power to get better terms than obviously we had 20 years ago.
Yeah. I do licensing for digital services, and I would say it's not just difficult for an independent to get in the deal, it's almost impossible for a service to achieve all of those rights without some consolidation. And in those deals, they have a leveling up clause if anyone gets paid anymore. So, if you're there. But there's another aspect of leveling up, which is all about that reach, accessing those services, knowing that your rights are behaving well, even playing in that market in an operational and a technical and a transparent way. So big companies have bigger resources to invest in those technologies, but independents have more pressure than ever to work smarter and more globally and more efficiently. How do you solve that?
So first of all, I just that we don't make a wrong impression. When you're independent, long term, more revenue, more ownership, more cash out for you. A major deal, so I don't wanna compare major or independent now, but if we need to define a client and ask the question: fast, big money, or more long-term money? Yeah. And when they answer the question, number 2, we go to the case and we explain them that they will get 20-30% more in the end compared to a major deal. until you are one of the 0.00% superstars who will get everything.
That's all about the story of records.
I just want to not that we underrate the independence, because it's not just a mindset, it's also a question of revenue. Because when you want to build up your catalog, that's another topic now, another bomb. When you want to build up your catalog with all the rights, you ask us here, and we can tell you in the 10 years you can sell it if you perform. If you don't perform, your music is not good, or the market doesn't like it, then there's nothing we could do. But if the best case scenario is going to happen, you will have more revenue in the end and another apartment on the hill compared to the apartment which you rent. That's your ownership. That's something we have to mention.
So how do you allow them that intelligence and that scale through technology?
It's quite so the indie market or the independent companies, they are quite up to date with technology, and I would say on the independent market we are not that many. Music technology, content technology, that's one unit in the meantime. If you are only on one side, you are limited because you don't know what the other tech part is doing with you. Monetization is the word, and when you do technology, you understand monetization, and you can consult your client, which is a label or manager, an artist or rights owners. You can consult these clients much better, and I don't think that the major industry has more tech skills. They just have more budget to buy it in the end. They just have a look at the market and see, number one, tech, interesting, developing, number two, number three. And after 3 years, they buy them and not her because of any reason. That's the benefit they have. But we have a lot of possibilities nowadays. We can do publishing beside distribution. The shops are more open for direct publishing. We don't need CMOs anymore in all markets because European Commission, clever, and they set up a new law, which is called the IME or the RME, Independent Management Entity. Unison, for example, is an ION, which we have to mention. And it's not, I think it's not everybody's into the IME, into the alternative for old CMOs, which are often controlled by the majors. And the great deal the majors make with the platform is often including a kickback between the big platform and the major 1, 2, 3, 4. And the kickback doesn't arrive on your independent side. What we have, we need to distribute. That's the big difference. Coming back again to more cash. Sorry, I need to talk about money because it's always. I'm often a bit naive, and I think people believe in what we do, and then they ask again, how much do I get? Fair question, but it's also about money, and independence needs constant revenue, and independence and never the rich ones. But in the end, I think we pay more. And to go back to the tech and content question. We have so many great possibilities at the moment to be fast, also on the AI side of things. I mean, so there's a lot of creativity which is needed on the AI, on the Gen AI side. Training data is a big issue at the moment, but that's a bottleneck we will be through in 2 or 3 years. Then legal will support us, new laws, and it's not about masses of data, it's about new creativity for the machine, and the old creativity is for CD, vinyl, stream, download. So I think it looks quite good if we are clever on the independent side.
Do you mean creativity in the way that music is made, or creativity in how they work with the market?
How you produce the music in the studio. The track Bam Bam Bam, I Love You for streaming. I exaggerate now. Just to give you an example, it might be for the Gen AI. So the producer exactly knows in a few years, or the good producers, they know how to feed the machine, because the machine without creativity, it doesn't work. That's something we should never forget. Creativity, perhaps I don't think I think I will die before the machine will be more creative than the human, and which is good. And that's because the future or the here and now looks quite attractive for independence.
Positive word on AI, not something that I usually hear, but there's a really important distinction there between something that is creative and creating music, whether it's in part or it's in whole, it's a tool of something or it's not. But what do you see in terms of tools that are the essentials for independence? What is it their data? Is it the way that they are able to compete with their content? What do you provide that makes the difference?
First of all, it's a legal tech process. So how we acquire the content is crucial for us. So 15, 20 years ago, we did get only one right, the master right of a recording, which was enough for us. Is everybody aware of the master in the publishing? Let's assume everybody knows about it. So we did get the master/recording, enough for our business. A few years later, we recognized we can't make good deals for our clients when we don't have the publishing.
Right.
So we acquired the publishing, sometimes without owning it, just that we have control and we know he is into the deal. He needs to know what we are doing. We were able to make better deals with gaming platforms. We did get cash. Again, cash without kickbacks for any companies in the background. 10K in, minus our margin, 9K or 8 or 7K, depending on 7K is great. 9K is not so good for us, but at least we have something. But we all know the distribution game, and someone needs to earn something. And so that enabled us to do more. Then by accident, the AI came, and now we don't know which rights do you need to know, you need to own, or you need to do on behalf or administrate on behalf. And at the moment, it's if you don't have both rights or don't know about both rights, you can't do AI. That was a lucky situation for us, so we were able to make AI licensing, which is 1 revenue, 2 revenue, number 3 revenue. So the independent market needs to go on both rights, and there needs to be matching systems, because if I can't have his rights on the publisher side, at least I need to have a match. That's what we need to work on, and then we can generate more revenue.
I'd be a huge advocate of that. I certainly see working across both sides and deep in the geeky weeds that more money is lost by being left on the table because of bad data or bad solutions than any nefarious conversations would ever pick up. And actually what a lot of the scale now is demonstrating is all of the homework we should have done before on our data. But we've done the AI panel, and I'm sure there's something on metadata coming up. So actually I wanted to ask you, Noemí, about in the array of independents that are talking to each other on a global basis, they're working on a global basis, they're with partners, as you say, David. What are the solutions that they are jumping on? Because independents can be more agile than the 6 floors of approvals they have to jump through to adopt something. What are they capitalizing on?
I actually meant it. I'll come to this, but no, there's so many solutions right now. I think we're creating, distributing, accounting for, marketing, music. I think it's endless.
Has it changed the game, the independents?
I think so. You have access now to lots of companies that can provide. I know, for example, I work at the record label royalty management. We used to do that manually or with like spreadsheets when it took a lot of time and effort to keep. Now you have companies where you can just basically input on your revenue streams and they create your royalties statements for you. Things like this, really help. Basically, it's less than if it's a small company. We used to be 3 people. So of course, there's not a lot of time that you can allocate to do all this technical stuff. So definitely solutions that help. But going back to metadata, because it's super important that this is right from the beginning, because like you say, more money is lost from actually not having the good details, data, than I think anything else. We at WIM, together with the IFPI, which is also the representing the recording industry, but including the majors. So it's not a solution just for independents, and the majors also use it. We created something that's called RDX, it's the Repertoire Data Exchange, and this is at the industry portal to deliver your neighboring rights data for the sound recording parts, not the performers, but for the record labels, basically, to send this information to the MLCs, to the music licensing companies, the CMOs, the collecting societies for sound recording rights. And with single one-stop shop delivery, you can send at once to, it's now 13 societies, including 21 territories, because we have PPL, which also has services to other territories. So this is important for independence, even though the majors are also using it, because the majors, they have a branch, a company in every or almost every single market. So they can collect locally from each territory, basically. So traditionally, there were not many bilateral agreements between the MLCs, the collecting societies in the sound recording world, which means that the independents are leaving a lot of money because it's collected in other territories, but it's not distributed. Because if you don't register in every single society or have some kind of agent or a way of doing it, bilaterals were almost non-existent until probably 10 years ago. Very few, and still lacking in many territories. So especially, I'm thinking Latin America for Spain, no? So there's no one with Capit, which is the Argentinian one between Spain and Argentina, and couple more, but that's it. So, everything else, when your music is played on the radio or venues in these markets, you don't get it. You don't get your money back. So this is the solution that we build is to at least be able to provide your repertoire data to all these societies. And then you still need to collect and manage and all that. But the data comes from you. It's one source. It's the same, standardized using DDEX standards, etc. So yeah, it's just an example of using technology to help independents get better metadata, which results in better, more money returned, basically more money back.
So there's a consolidation there in terms of standards, common uses, common practices, but actually it ties in something we heard on a previous panel about market share, because if people basically don't know who to pay, it won't be attributed to you, and that's where we get the stats of what is independent and what isn't. There's another aspect of being able to compete as an independent, particularly in the sync world, which is flourishing with new technologies, tagging, giving different emotive scoring, different categorization. Bain's API, really sophisticated example. Have you adopted that, or do you think it's about the relationships and knowing your music more? What makes you compete?
When I started doing sync licensing, it was done with a telephone and a fax machine, and there was no internet, and they'd only just invented email, right? And the degree to which the technology that exists now, I remember when I wanted to do a pitch, I would have to, there would be a library of CDs on the wall.
Yep.
And I would pick out, I'd pick out 4 or 5 songs or 4 or 5 records that I wanted to put on it. I would then bring those records to the studio. And then the next day they would give me back a CDR I would burn with the 5 tracks that I wanted. And then I'd have to get a bike to come and pick them up and take them to the supervisor that was doing and that now, the day I was able to attach an MP3 to an email was like, what?
Yeah.
And then, and various different players entered the market with complicated sync licensing platforms and various different solutions and lots of different jostling around. And there was platforms that wanted to take a share of revenue. There was platforms that had high rental prices. But in the end, we settled on Disco, which I think a lot of people use because it's essentially a delivery platform, and it does things very simply. So we also store our music there now, and we also use some of their tagging tools and stuff like that. But you have to apply your own intelligence because, as I mentioned earlier, we have some pretty eccentric music, and so it doesn't necessarily tag it correctly. So we get a suggestion. And we say, well, thank you for that, but that's completely not true. So you sort of go in and do it yourself. The challenge, the double-edged sword, though, because everybody else has the same technology. And also everybody and all the music supervisors and all the people all these coveted relationships that you had are now almost available to anybody. So the problem is that everybody has Disco and everybody can send their music to Leland or Theodore or whoever. And so it's kind of like, in one way, my job's easier, but it's also a lot harder because everybody else has this same technology. So we definitely use it, and it's certainly it's amazing. It compared to what I was doing 25 years ago, it's astonishing.
Well, I suppose that is actually the double-edged sword of the market, isn't it? We want greater reach. We want to be able to produce more, create more, reach more fans, but then that gives a kind of scale that dilutes the impact of all those things. But sync is engages with people, sells things, whether it's a film or a product, because of nostalgia. And not to dive back in the AI conversation, but generative music is not for that. So I guess that's always going to be the advantage. It's a question of which technologies do you take advantage of to capitalize on that. But I'm going to ask broadly, more broadly than sync, more broadly than globalization or dilution. you work across a breadth of solutions for smaller companies. As you said, you're delivering their content, you're figuring out their data, you're explaining to them how all this works and why. If you could have a turnkey that you would say to an independent that they need to get on top of, whether it's a technical solution or it's a practice or an understanding of something, what would you say is, if you did one thing, do this as an independent?
Know about both rights.
Knowledge.
Master in publishing, that's the core case, or that was the original sin to split these rights. Perhaps not for the last 30, 40 years, publishing business was good, recording industry also, but we only had troubles, DSPs, mechanicals included, yes, no.
Yeah.
Disaster. It's still not fixed. I mean, how many years did it take in North America to form an MLC, which is the first solution? And they are struggling with all these data mix-ups and mash-ups, and it's better than nothing. But I mean, we there's nothing to hide. It took us 10, 11, 12 years to form an MLC before this problem was solved because of right split deals with the new platforms. Nowadays it's called 200% clearing, just both rights. Or sometimes they call it 300%. It's also, I ask myself, when do we talk about 500%? It's ridiculous.
Only when they're charging you.
Split of the rights is something which shouldn't be done. You need to know both rights. If you only have one right, you miss out a lot of deals, a lot of good deals.
You miss out on the creativity. We were talking about this earlier because we're really exciting straight at breakfast, which is to say, actually, it's amazing how many people have been in the industry in one lane or another for years and have no idea how the bit next door works. And if you're in the middle, that's kind of extraordinary. But it makes you approach the way music is made, where it's delivered, who your fans are, in a different way to understand those both sides, as it were. So knowledge is power. I would say the separation of powers, like most things in life, recorded and publishing have good reasons, and a lot of people making a lot on that basis. But as an independent, you have the agility to see all of your assets in the round, and that's what we're talking about. Yeah. And you have the ability to turn up or down each one that has the advantage in each scenario. And to have that dual sight, that overview, is massively underestimated. So thank you for that. But knowledge is power. And when we've had conversations about reach, scale, size matters, is it recorded, is it publishing, is it indie versus major? We are seeing a big time of acquisition. We've seen it before, and everybody grows and then they sort of explode into new indies. But now we're seeing an acquisition of services as well as imprints, labels, publishers. I'd like to hear from each of you a pro and a con of that. We've talked about why it's better to be indie. We'll come back to that. We've talked about what you need to be able to compete and where consolidation is interesting. But given the time we're in now, I'd like each of you to tell me a good and a bad thing about the changes we see in acquisition.
Well, the good thing about consolidation is, as companies get bigger and bigger and bigger, as one major swallows another major, the one thing that they're absolutely sure to be doing is not treating the artist very well, because you can't, right? And also, when I started as at Mute Song 25 years ago, there was some really strong competitors of ours. It was Bug Music, it was Chrysalis Music. These were companies about the same. Well, they were indies, but they had really good taste. We would lose out to them. But as these really cool companies got gobbled up, our competition got smaller. So we stuck out. So we just go in the opposite direction from all this consolidation. So we just basically say, you can be published by Walmart, or you can be published by the Savile Row Taylor, which is what we are, right? So there's a different, these big companies, they're in the business of acquiring and exploiting assets. Mm-hmm. We're in the business of creating art for mankind, or for humanity, let's say. So it's a different thing. So we just retreat from that entirely. And if you are assigned to one of these massive companies as an artist, they will look after you really well if you make them a lot of money. But they won't look after the artists that don't make very much money. An artist that doesn't make a lot of money has no purpose within one of those organizations. They exist to make money. So we're different. But of course, the opposite side is that they have a lot of clout, and they can, they might be able to. I think that their ability to move things behind the scenes is limited. I've had people at Universal say, "Oh, we know about the film before it's even made, and our music's already in there before." I take that with a pinch of salt, but but there is that you do imagine that people can provide package deals of music and cutting everybody else out and so forth. So that is that there is a danger there that that these companies are so big that they have a lot of power and they can cut exclusive deals with, say, Viacom or whatever. By and large, let the majors get bigger and bigger and bigger because they just look crappier.
I'd love to come back to the differentiator of taste.
Sorry, no. Very dangerous. Oh, sorry.
No, I just think I'd like to just have a whole thing on the distinction of companies, not as independent as major, but just on grounds of taste. But that might be quite a short panel. But actually, there was a big fallout in the UK, certainly in the independent community, about acquisition of services, which I'd love to talk to you about in a second. But I'd love this is the acquisition of the distribution company. So you, as an independent, have an independent distributor, whether it was PS or even Ingrooves or on the song side as well, and that's being acquired. So you retain your independence as a company, but your route to market, your supply chain is now owned. What's the worldwide view?
So I used to think,
I know that monopolies are not good for market.
No, but I used to think exactly the same. I used to work at the small label and thought, let them, be bigger and buy each other. What do I care, right? And like you say, you can see it in the short term even being beneficial because, you get less competitors. But what we are seeing, especially in the recorded side, well, publishing, I think a little bit as well, but there's three big corporations that control, like I said, let's say 70% of the recorded music market. And what they do, and lots of it is probably behind the scenes, but one, they are actively capturing value from the independents, and that's not my words, it's Universal at some of their shareholder presentations. They are actively capturing this through services, like you said. So it's Virgin Music now, is the independent brand that Universal is using to distribute independent labels or artists. Now acquiring Downtown, which includes Fuga or CD Baby, also, key partners of independence. They want to put it all in we're Universal, but we also have this really good company that now provides all these services for independents, etc. But they use these for leverage. They use all these, not just their recorded share, but the distribution share to negotiate with platforms, for example.
But don't the indies benefit from that then? Because their content would be distributed under those deals.
Those that are distributed, but for everybody else, it's not. And so, for example, platforms last year introduced new royalty distributions, which means that for some of them, artists that have less than 1,000 plays won't monetize, won't be paid, and the money then goes to the ones that do have more than 1,000 plays. And what we see from our investigations is that this is benefiting the high and the bigger ones more than the smaller ones, which are just above the threshold. And this was not just a unilateral decision by platforms. We know that Universal, for example, is pushing for a streaming 2.0. It's part of the strategy. It's part of their artist-centric move. There's a lot that they can use to then, when they negotiate the terms with the platforms, influence them. So who is benefiting? That lots of independent artists mainly are not paid if they make less than 1,000. Well, the bigger ones. That's what I mean. This has repercussions then, that in ways that you don't see immediately, but they can use all this power and all this control to leverage, terms and deals that are not really detrimental for us.
Except Merlin will have an MFN. I mean, is that the question of then you appreciate the scale that provides? or are indies now A&R for the majors? Discuss. But actually, what I'd love to pick up on was
100% we're A&R.
But
100% we are A&R for the majors.
David picked up on where the money is, though, and that's interesting to the majors. But he also identified in what's being acquired that they're obviously seeing the services as where the money is. So as you provide services for the independents, do you find they are even more important to do to compete with that scale? Or do you have an uphill battle getting the independents to engage with the value of those services?
We must do services. If not, we can't build up an independent content or artist or topic. So we are forced to do it. If we fail, we don't earn money. The margin is too low, and then the model doesn't work anymore. So if I would choose major or independent, I wouldn't think of this mindset and all these things. I would like to ask for a plan. Like, why do I get an advance? For what is it? Is it spent for marketing? How much do you spend on the marketing services? Often nowadays, agencies spend 15, 20, 30K euros for a campaign which is worth 250 euros.
So be smarter.
That's just, you can earn money like this, but we can't afford it if this goes public. We have a serious issue. So that's a problem. For the campaigning budget is the thing you need to know about, also both rights and campaigning budget. If not, they will always deduct so many services from your accounting, from your service statement, etc., etc. So services, the answer is yes, it's a must-have. If not, you can't compete with the others. Then it's a question of, is the service fake or is it real?
Right.
Lots of crap services on the market. Then you also need to sometimes understand also a question from your client or from the independent, let's say independent and major acts. They ask the same, like, political questions. Like, there's a big KKR discussion going on these days.
Yes.
As far as I've heard, and I had a complaint. No, I talked with a client and he said, well, I would never do that, never work with the company, signed by BMG Rights Publishing.
So that's a whole different kind of
You know what I mean?
transparency. Yes.
I'm speechless. I even don't know what to say anymore. I think, okay, now I'm confused. But I would like to not have so much confusion on the market. Precise questions, a guideline also from independent associations need to be updated nowadays. What kind of financial possibilities do you have with this company when you reach level 1? Can they pay you the $250K or not? If they can do it, you're happy until then, go with them. If they can't pay it anymore after level 1, then go to Universal because they might give you 1.5 million. Fair enough. That's, you sometimes need to divorce or you're married till you die.
Whole other panel.
The reason I was going to say it's a smart business move to get into services. It's an ancient thing to do. During the gold rush, there was some people that struck gold and some people didn't. The man that got rich is the man that sold the shovels.
Yep.
And I just wanted to clarify that we're not anti-major because you hear me and you may think that it's not really this. We're in favor of equal access and equal terms and equal opportunities for all. So it's not just against, right? I think that the problem is when they become too big and they become too powerful to control, the market and et cetera. But we need strong companies, strong recorded music companies, publishing companies, including the majors, for the music sector, the music industry to be strong against other sectors as well, that we have like AI, for example, or so on. So we need, but it's like in football, if you only had, let's say, Barca and Real Madrid, and not all the others, football will die eventually, right? It would die because you need all the smaller teams, you need all the teams in every town, every little city to nurture all those players, all those, the communities that are created around this, that then eventually maybe go up and go to play in the major leagues. It's a bit the same. So we're all part of this ecosystem. It's about balance and it's about protecting the smaller ones and not letting the big ones get too big.
So the key aspects here are have a reason for doing what you're doing and believe in it, have a reason for working together collectively for scope, and know what you're doing, know what you're signing, know what you're getting for whatever partnerships that you create. I can understand all of that. I refuse to believe that football will ever die, but again, another conversation. I also realise that we've got about 10 minutes to go. So
Can I make a small correction?
yes,
This narrative,
disclaimer.
now I have in Germany we say Kopfkino, that's a brain cinema. Now I have Real Madrid and Barcelona, and in the end, everybody goes to A and B. That's a situation we don't have anymore in the market. Technology in the background is so powerful, you even don't know what the independents can do nowadays. Forget about Real Madrid and Barcelona in this area. In the Spanish league, something
of
else.
course, but
In the end, the president
but
of
if
Bilbao, he will
remember
always
that
say,
when they're
3
trying
years
to
later,
create like
it's
a
gone.
super league of only the super big teams, and then if all the sponsors go there, if all the money goes there, if all the people, it's a different situation. But yeah,
It's a really good
basically-
analogy, though, because it is a different kind of passion to look after and be attached to your local team. It is a different kind of business to be in a Champions League.
Yeah.
But the Super League was rejected because of the fans.
Yeah.
So we can't forget why people listen
Exactly.
to music and what they want. I'm going to try another bow before anybody gets litigious on me. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, very quick question. First of all, thank you so much for the panel. Thank you.
Hello. Thanks so much for this. Really, really educational. Advice, please. First of all, I love how you said at the beginning that working together is a really good thing. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a songwriter producer. I run an academy, and accidentally started running a sync agency.
It happens.
And just fell into it, and it's expanding. Are there organizations that bring together sync agency? I'm a firm fan of,
Yes.
it takes a village. So the small sync agencies can share their information, can all benefit and from each other along the way. Are there organizations that you can recommend that bring together?
I can recommend from the rights holding side, for example, the Music Publishers Association, which represents all of those songwriters. I mean, it's obviously the key market for the song side, has a sync aspect to it. It also, those trade bodies, those associations are the ones that do educational programs as well on how it works, why it works, and who you need to talk to. And as I said, sync is the most sociable of work streams because it depends on those relationships that David was talking about. So I would recommend starting with the MPA. Do you know other agents?
The MPA.
in the UK.
And there's,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then there's AIM Sync, which is a tuning
exactly, I was gonna
conference,
say,
which
yeah.
you can attend. And there's Sync Drinks, which
Sync drinks.
and
Actually
so
still a thing.
I mean, it's a weird thing because obviously, I want my songs in there, not yours, right? So and so do you, right?
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing, but generally speaking, we're all very nice to one another. It was interesting because I was talking to our German partner about Sync Drinks, and he said that wouldn't work in Germany because people wouldn't want to they wouldn't want to be in this if they had a client, they wouldn't want anybody else to be near that client. But I said, I guess a rising tide lifts all the boats or something like this.
Also-
So there is that, but I mean, ultimately, sync is just really, really hard. It's just really, really hard.
It's stressful.
The thing to remember and stressful. The thing to remember about sync is that 99 placements in 100 get no mark. They just it's in there because it come from the culture into the film, So the amount that we can influence, bring unknown artists into positions, it happens all the time. But the majority of stuff, sync is a reflection of the culture. And so if the music's in the culture, then it'll likely be reflected in film and television and in games and in adverts. But there is these things. There is sharing. And people who work on both sides, the buyers and the sellers, we all know each other. So when an artist says, "What are you doing for me?" I say 30 years
Drinking.
of networking. 30 years of drinking.
Yeah.
But also, you don't want to lose that sync because they can't reach the other co-owner or the co-writer.
Yeah.
And so actually, that is the way that we've got this coming up. You can kind of pre-do the deal, so to speak. So knowing who else is in that market will lead you to the agents as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're about to do our first partnership with an Estonian sync agent,
Right.
and we have we just have the same attitude of like, well, if we don't have what we need in our catalogue to fulfill a brief, then let's help somebody else do this, and we take a percentage of it, and it's a mutual thing. It's a reciprocal agreement. And it just seems to make so much more sense to work with people. We do so much more better together.
Yeah, it syncs too quick. If you drop it, someone else will pick it up. So you need to make it work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? There. Sorry, making the
Over
mic
there.
run around. Yeah.
Is it over there?
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I'm a Berklee College of Music student, currently doing my master's in
Congrats.
thank you, in global entertainment and music business. And I'm really interested in innovation and technology, especially, and following what's especially happening with AI and AI creators. And I mean, I know all of us know what's happening with Suno and Udio, like all the legal stuff. But what I'm noticing, what's happening, especially in my friend cycle as well, is like people using it, especially non-musicians as well. They're
For
doing
sure.
music, and it's honestly sometimes actually super surprising. Like one of my friends turned it on on the radio, and I was like, wait, I didn't know it was AI. And he said, that's AI. And I'm like, okay. And they see themselves almost as independent artists now.
For sure.
So what are we, especially in sync licensing, if like someone, for example, sees themselves as an artist and sends music, but it's AI generated?
Can I take?
Yeah.
There were so rather different parts of that. I think to detect that something is completely generated, which is quite difficult in some ways, but there are technical solutions. We heard about them previously. So it depends whether or not the sync person wanting the music necessarily cares about that. Do they want the nostalgic resonance, or do they want a particular sound? And you could argue that goes back to production music, etc. Creators have always found new and exciting tools to create music. You know, that's the naysaying about a drum machine you wouldn't believe, and it gives access to people who haven't had formal training, expensive kit, etc. And that's really exciting. So at the moment, copyright is attracted with a human author. So as long as that human is bringing all these tools together, including themselves, then it's still their composition, it's still their copyright. It's another tool to make music, which again, very different to completely synthetic. If you've used other people's music to create that music, whole nother panel again, So I think it depends on what and how they're doing, and then what they do with that music.
If I could, so we were on the front line of this. So we basically won the argument that music made by machines is still music, right?
Yep.
Because we, pioneers in electronic music. Daniel Miller, our founder, famously said he loved the spirit of punk, but he said, why bother learning 3 chords when I can just push a button?
And punk was to do it differently, right?
Exactly. So if somebody uses a machine to make music, AI is just a machine that makes music. It's no different, I think, spiritually, from using a preset. You open your machine, it puts out a beat, you rap over it, that's your track, right? It's just a machine that makes music, and anybody who makes music can legitimately say, okay, I've made some music. It doesn't matter how easy or difficult it was to make, because that argument again, because the musicians union used to not allow synthesizers on top of the pops. It was like crazy, because there was these, because people said, unless you play it by hand, it's not real. But that's
then
over.
the 80s happened.
So the music has to compete on its merits, and it's a question of your honesty and your integrity. If your intention is to flood the market, try to grab a piece of market share with easily created content, well then you're not an artist. You're a dick. Right?
You're not an artist, and you're not going to earn that much money, because actually you dilute.
Also very different if you're just using AI as a tool to help you create, which again, like a scenes or anything presets, or the fact that the models of which this, especially the generative AI is based on, is on scraping millions of works of
possibly
people and creatives, and that's different, because that's, for us, that's stealing. You need to ask permission to the rights owner, the rights controller, to use the songs for this. Where in this,
well, to be the devil's advocate, did the Rolling Stones and the Beatles ask permission for all the music that they mined?
well.
And that's a
Degree.
very
It's not the same,
specific
yeah.
use case. But there is an argument about what's inspiration and what's technology. See what
Yeah.
you've started now. You get everyone really
It's another
riled up.
panel.
But to David's point, as well as the view on AI, it's a tool. It's the purpose of using that tool, to my mind, is the question. In any way of making music, if you use someone else's stuff, sample a cut, beat, riff, whatever it is, there's a limit to how much that's inspiration and how much somebody has credit to be paid, literally. But we're not going to stop the new tools hitting the creative market, I think. So see what they do with it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was super helpful. And
I think there will be a prompt artist soon. The person who can make the best mix and have the best. Like before, it was the remixer. The generation before, they were complaining about the remixer because they said that's not music. Then they complained about the people who use Ableton, the rock band in the studio. And there was a guy with turntables, and Ableton said, "What is this?" They were making music loops, and they said, "That's not music." It's obvious. And the prompt artist will be a person the old generation will laugh about, and you will say, by accident, I release my prompts on the platform you even don't know about, and I get cash.
But to Ralph's earlier point, and you hit on DJs, where I find it so common that a DJ, as in a club DJ, who is producing and releasing and writing their music all at the same time, they don't realise they're songwriters, so they're leaving money on the table. So it's really important that as they brought different tools together to make that work, that they do then register that work, if they've co-created it, as a song as well as a record, or they're leaving those rights on the table like any other songwriter.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the people I know, they're also really they're invested in what they're doing. Like they really love that. And like when I said, for example, Suno has a lawsuit going on right now, they can't really do that much with their music. They were truly sad about that because they put so much effort in it.
There's a different thing, as Noemí said, to using other people's data to do something else without their permission, to using a technical tool to making music. And I think that's where we tend to get stuck in existential arguments.
Thank you.
But there's one of these things going on. I was going to say one more question, but no, sorry. Thank you very much, everybody. But thank you. Brains on this panel.